Hey, the Rangers played on Tuesday night. They lost. Who really cares, right? After the letter, nothing really matters, wins or losses wise. But I want to know where Artemi Panarin is going to go. Was it a showcase for him in LA? Hey, everybody, I'm Todd Werwa, your host for Rangers Daily, presented by Fan Arch. Please subscribe. Please leave a thumbs up if you like the content. Leave your thoughts, your questions, your opinions down in the chat below. I love reading them all. Good, bad, otherwise. It's all cool. So let's start a little bit with the big question that, until it gets answered, will dominate all Rangers talk. Where might Artemi Panarin go? All right. I tried making a list, and based on what I would think his preferences are and who has draft picks, let's see where we might narrow it down a little bit. He's not going to Anaheim. He's not, remember, he's got the no move clause, so he's got a lot of say in this. So I don't think he's going to Anaheim, even though Joel Quenneville's there. He's not going to Boston. He's not going to Buffalo. He's not going back to Columbus. He's not going to Calgary. He's not going to Chicago. I don't think he's going to Edmonton. He's not going to Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota wants another Paul Theophanis contract after the Kirill Kaprizov re-signing, we'll just say. He's not going to Montreal. He's not going to Nashville. He's not going to the Devils. He's not going to the Islanders. He's not going to Ottawa. He's not going to Philly. He's not going to Pittsburgh, although seeing him and Malkin would be fun. He's not going to Seattle. He's not going to St. Louis. He's not going to Toronto. He's not going to Utah. He's not going to Vancouver. He's not going to Vegas. He's not going to Winnipeg. I don't think he'd go to San Jose. He'd block people, so put San Jose on that no list. Also, so that leaves just a few teams. I think it's 9, and some are stronger than others, but let's go through it alphabetically. Carolina. I don't think he's going to Carolina, but you never know. They do have a first in this year's upcoming draft. They don't have a second or a third, but they do have a first also in 2027. Colorado would be extraordinary to see him play there. I think he'd be great there. I think he'd go there, obviously, with the chance to win a cup. They did want him before the Rangers signed him. They were trying to sign him also, but they don't have a first. They don't have a second. They don't have a third in the upcoming draft. They do have a 2027 first. The Rangers already have 2 firsts in this upcoming draft, one of them being Carolina's. So I don't know how much Chris Drury values getting another first rounder in this draft, or would he value getting a 2027 more? So that's why I'm throwing it in there. I don't know that there's a way Colorado could do it, but they do have a 2027 first. Dallas, he'd replace Tyler Seguin, who's out with an injury for the rest of the year. I think he'd be fantastic there. I don't know if he would want to go there, but team's been to 3 straight Western Conference Finals. Have a different coach. Obviously, Pete DeBoer not there anymore. It's Glenn Gulletson. So maybe he would go there. They don't have a first, but they do have a second and third in this upcoming draft, and they do have a 2027 first-round pick. Wonder if they could make that happen. Detroit could play with Patty Kane. I don't know if they're really ready yet to win. So I don't know if he would sign an extension there, if they'd want him to sign an extension there. They are a team on the rise with young talent. They have a first, second, and third in this year's upcoming draft. They do also have a first in 2027 and a third in 2027. The Florida Panthers put them on there because, of course, he would go to Florida. His friend Bobrovsky's down there. They've won the Cup twice. Playing for Paul Maurice, is fantastic. Whether they could make it happen is a whole nother issue. They don't have a 2026 first. They do have 2 twos. They don't have a third. They also do not have their 2027 first-round pick. So I don't think they'd have enough to lure him. They also were just through this last year with Brad Marchand, whether they'd want to do that again. Now, they did sign Marchand to a long-term extension, but I don't know if they'd want to do that again as much as it might be his preferred number one destination. The LA Kings, despite Tuesday's result, they have trouble scoring. They do play a very tight defensive game. Do they really have a chance to win the Cup? Don't know, but they're very talented, especially if Kopitar and Doughty didn't play on Tuesday, but I think it was just illness, so he'll be back. They do have lots of talent, could certainly use a scoring winger. They have their first in 2026. They have 2 seconds. They also have 2 thirds. They also have a first and second in 27. So they have lots of picks they could give up. He might go to Hollywood. They could try, would he sort of be behind the 8 ball between maybe the 3 monster powers in Colorado, Dallas, and I guess if you consider post-Quinn Hughes trade Minnesota as the other one? Could LA get past Edmonton if it came to that? It's been their bugaboo, but they do have a cup-winning goalie in Kemper. They have veterans. They have youth. They played him a lot, the Rangers did, in the third period against LA. Little bit of showcase. I know they were obviously chasing the game and needed goals. He's their most dynamic player. There are probably 9 million other reasons why Panarin played that much, but LA just keeps popping up for me as a possibility. Tampa Bay, I think he would definitely go there. I just don't think Tampa Bay has the resources to make it happen. Or, who knows if they want to. They do not have their first round pick this year or next year. They do have a second and a third in this year's draft. So I don't think that's a reasonable possibility. But again, I have it on the list because I think it would be a place he would say, yes, I'd go. I mentioned San Jose. They do have 2 number ones coming up in the upcoming draft, along with a second, and they do have a 2027 number one. I actually think, because they've got a lot of young players, and if he would go there without an extension, who knows? They're obviously not a cup contender. They're more, a playoff contender, but I don't see them winning the cup because they're too young. They don't have that playoff experience. But that could be a Trocheck spot to, they've got young Michael Misa playing third line center. They could use, I think Alex Wenberg is their second line center. Like, they could use a Trocheck and may have the draft capital to do it. But again, don't know if they're really adding on. They just added Kiefer Sherwood. So we'll see what they're thinking. I don't think that's a landing spot for Panarin. The other intriguing one are the Washington Capitals. I don't know what the relationship between him and Ovechkin would be, but I'm sure they could smooth out their Putin differences. He'd fit in perfectly on that team. We'd have a great coach in Spencer Carberry. It would make them a cup contender. They have good goaltending, good defense. They do have a first-round pick in 2026. They don't have a second or a third. They do also have a 1 and a 2 in 27, and they do also have their 1 in 2028. So, maybe potentially Drury goes 27-28 instead of something for 26. So those I think are the, viable spots. I don't think all of them are obviously as viable as others. A lot of it comes down to what Panarin wants. I don't think there's any on there in terms of, other than maybe San Jose. I don't think there's any on there that Panarin would turn down. Maybe Detroit. I don't know. Maybe Carolina, just because of the way they play. But they get a lot of shots on goal, and they do forecheck. He's not the biggest, the best forechecker, banger, that kind of thing. But he loves shooting the puck, and Carolina loves shooting the puck. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen there, but they do have Svechnikov. They, bringing in a Russian player and bringing in someone where he would be immediately comfortable. Who knows? I wouldn't put them at the very top, but that's my list for now. Where he'll go, I don't know yet, but he'll definitely go. like I mentioned, Rangers lost to the LA Kings. I had said on yesterday's podcast that I thought the Rangers would go all out to really try to win for Quick, as he might be playing his last game in LA. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. They were all discombobulated at the beginning of the game, and the Kings scored 18 seconds in. They hung Quick out to dry. Now, they did put up some fight. They were down 4-2 until the very last minute, scored a goal to make it 4-3, but it was just defensive breakdown after defensive breakdown. They really did not play well defensively in front of Jonathan Quick, that we're going to win for our, locker room, one of the leaders. Yeah, it didn't really happen. Like I said, they lost a lot of board battles. They didn't do a lot of the hard work. They had tons of turnovers. They just couldn't get through the neutral zone. They got dominated in terms of style of play. They fell into the LA Kings style of play, controlling the game, and they just couldn't figure out how to beat it. At 5-on-5, the scoring chances were 36-18 for the Kings. The high danger chances were 19-10 for the Kings. The Rangers had a 5-on-3 that lasted a minute 36. They were down 3-2. It was 5-on-3, and then they had a little bit of 5-on-4 afterwards. They got 8 shots on it, couldn't score. Within 2 minutes, LA made it 4-2, and that was essentially the game. LA made it 5-2 at one point, but Corey Perry got called for a little bit of contact on Quick coming through the crease. It was minimal, but I guess letter of the law. So the goal came off, so it was still 4-2 come the final minute. Jonathan Quick has now lost 12 straight games. Obviously, that's not good. Rangers have lost 10 of 12 since Christmas, which also means 10 of 11 indoors since Christmas. Couple of positives. Mika extended his point streak to 10 games. I believe he also has had a 10-game point streak before, so I think it's his ties for his longest. JT Miller had 2 goals, won a beautiful play, cycle through the offensive zone with Mika, and Mika came down and found him as he was streaking to the net. Beautiful pass. Miller was actually, dumbfounded that Mika was able to get the pass through, and Miller scored the 4-3 goal to get it up late. He has 4 straight 2-point games, so good for him. The team has really lopsidedly been led by Mika and Artemi, so good to see at least Miller start getting on the board a little bit, even if it is too little too late. So not a happy birthday for Jonathan Quick, who turns 40 Wednesday. Rangers couldn't get it done for him. One of the things that's obvious with this team is their defense without Adam Fox is really gotten away from what they had practiced and preached early in the year. It's been abysmal of late, and part of it is Braden Schneider. Say that again. Braden Schneider. I'll just use the word stinks. He's not very good. The Gavrikov-Schneider pair, I know Schneider's thrust into a situation that really isn't, he's not a number one pair defenseman. But let me give you a couple of numbers. He took 2 penalties in the game against the Kings. He gives up the puck. The more they play him, the less they'll be able to trade him, it seems like. Let me give you some numbers. They've played almost about 400 minutes together, Gavrikov and Schneider. When they've been on the ice together, the Rangers have scored 11. They've given up 25. Outscored 25-11 when your top pair is on the ice. That is awful. Brutal, terrible, horrible, horrendous. Give you a little comparison. Gavrikov and Fox, who played nearly 500 minutes together, 17 goals for the Rangers when they've been on the ice, only 12 allowed when they've been on the ice. a marked difference, right? We know Fox is elite, so this is to be expected, but at some point, maybe make a change. At some point, do something differently. I know they don't have many options, but I think at least they should. Um, Against the Kings, when Gavrikov and Schneider were on the ice together, the attempts were 25-10 for LA, and the goals scored were 3-1 for LA. The scoring chances, just 2 for the Rangers while Gav and Schneider were on the ice, 14 allowed. HD high danger chances, only 2-4 while they were on the ice. They allowed 8 while they were on the ice. And as I mentioned, Schneider took the 2 minor penalties. Something has to change there, but again, if you believe Matthew Robertson can play, if you believe Scott Morrow can play, you're in there with Will Borgen. You're probably getting rid of Soucy. I'd trade Schneider also. I just don't think he's a very good defenseman. He gets beat. He can't carry the puck. Yeah, he can hit, but that's about it. Very much in the way Trouba couldn't play defense at the end, and all he could do was hit people. Now, I don't think Schneider has a future with the Rangers. They should get something for him. Next game is on Friday. Rangers visit Macklin Celebrini and the surging San Jose Sharks, getting through their rebuild. Obviously, when you draft, a potentially generational player at number 1, and Will Smith is great. They've got real good young talent. It makes it a little easier to get out of the rebuild, but they visit the Shark Tank. Rangers visit the Shark Tank on Friday, so they have a couple of days in California. It'd be interesting to see if there's some player movement in there while they're on the road. Remember, the game at the Garden was that crazy 6-5 overtime game. Might have been the first real breakdown of the defensive system. Is it another showcase for guys? Yeah, probably. Like I mentioned, maybe a Trocheck, or maybe they'd want a Schneider to go with. They do have, an older first pair, so maybe he helps them get a little bit younger. Sharks played Tampa on Tuesday. Tampa Bay is a wagon right now, and Lightning won 4-1. It's to be expected. I think Hagel had 2 goals, and Vasilevsky's been dominant. Young team, right? You're not gonna beat those great teams. I do want to mention, because I didn't mention it yesterday, I hope you've seen it. If you're a hockey fan, I'm sure you have. Even if you're a sports fan, I'm sure you have. The Sergei Bobrovsky, Alex Nedeljkovic fight was amazing. Nedeljkovic getting in there in the corner, Bobrovsky coming all the way down, and just dropping the gloves, crossing center ice, dropping the gloves with Nedeljkovic in the corner. Got a legit goalie fight, which I really think Nedeljkovic won. So he didn't play against the Lightning, so probably expect him to play against the Rangers. I'm not saying there'll be another fight, but, Nedeljkovic, it becomes a hero for the goalie fight, as does Bobrovsky. But it was great stuff. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. Watch it again and again. There's just something about 2 goalies trying to get the helmets off and the gloves and the blockers off, and just grabbing jerseys with the pads on it. It's comical. It's a comical sight, but actually wasn't a terrible fight. It wasn't like slap fighting or neither guy wanting to throw a punch. They were throwing some stuff. It was pretty good. So take a look if you haven't seen it. Anyway, that's all for today. Again, please subscribe. Tell all your Ranger fan friends. Make sure to leave a comment, thought down in the chat. And as always, thanks for watching.